My name is Doreen Sitter, and together with Colette Fisher, who is actually one of first time co-hosting, we will be your hosts today. Just as a reminder that we do record these sessions to be posted on FaceTime and YouTube at a later date. We are still having some technical difficulties getting them onto YouTube, but we will make it there, right? Right, Kathleen?
Right.
So if you don't want to have your attractive face on the video, please turn your video off, but you're able to participate in this discussion. Feel free to unmute and to raise your virtual hand or place a question or comment in the chat box when you want to join in this discussion. And this is, for most part, is a sharing session, and we hope that it will be fun for you to join in at any time. And with your thoughts and your comments on the topic are all very welcome. So before, I do have a few slides as we go through this particular session. I thought that would help to keep it more focused. But to start off with, I wanted to talk about seniors during these COVID times. Like many of us, and some of us have worked well past the time that we turned 60, 65, even some people well into their 70s. And a lot of them do this to supplement pensions, but because they choose to, or they just choose to continue wanting to work. But seniors contribute to the economy through this full-time work, of course, like every other person that works. But there is another form of contribution that seniors give, which isn't fully recognized. And that is that we are overwhelmingly committed to giving back to our communities, actually through volunteerism. So I'm just going to raise a slide here, just a second for a minute. And
ta-da.
Hold on, I'm getting there. I'm hoping everybody can see my slide. Can they?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, are you seeing just the slide or are they seeing two slides there? I wanted to know for sure.
Seeing the slide deck as well, Doreen.
You are, okay. So I'm just going to remove the slide deck because that will become annoying. Well, just bear with me for 2 seconds here and as I will remove it. I thought that was happening, so I thought I'd better double check before I, is that gone now?
No.
Yes,
yeah.
it's gone.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So you're just seeing the slide. That's
Correct.
perfect.
Correct.
All right. Apologize for that little hiccup there. I wasn't too sure if I kept my other screen on, if it was going to show it that way. Okay. One of the things we're talking about is that seniors really are a backbone of the volunteering in Canada. And of all the hours that are volunteering that happen in Canada, seniors contribute at least 20% of them, okay? At least 20%, which is a significant amount. But so what does that mean, 20%? Well, the government tried to equate the value of volunteering. And how they did that is that they chose to put a dollar value for every hour of volunteering, which is, they chose $27 to be able to say that's what the value of an hour of volunteering is. Well, if they did that, they would, it actually equates to $10.9 billion that is contributed into our economy annually, which is an enormous amount. And seniors are a big part of that. And when I looked at that number, it just about blew me away. But even on top of our volunteer or free hours that we give in respects to that, we also contribute from a monetary perspective. Seniors actually contribute 40% of all monetary donations in Canada. 40%. Well, what does 40% of monetary donations equate to? Well, that's an additional 4 billion. By the way, that's half of all the basically almost half of the contributions in Canada today. So we really are part of this backbone in our society of volunteering. But even on top of our volunteering hours, even on top of our monetary amounts, over a quarter of seniors are also caregivers. And that's just an amazing amount when you think of the hours and the time that seniors put in. Even during this pandemic, seniors have supported their communities in many, many ways, coming out of retirement to help in our overstretched health services in a multitude of other ways. When we start to come out of this pandemic, God willing, soon, Canada as a whole is going to be tapping into this resource of senior volunteering to help our country face some of the challenges that we're going to come up with post-pandemic. And of course, as always, seniors will be there with their lifetime of experiences and resources. But even if we talk about this economic and societal benefits of volunteering, there's another surprising benefit. And today, that's what our session is really going to be about. But before we get into there, I really want to stop sharing for a few minutes and talk about how volunteering has possibly changed during this pandemic for any one of you. Has anybody got some changes? I mean, I can describe one of them to get started, is that I do English as a second language. I used to go into the library once a week and have students or people come in, immigrants or refugees come in, and I would spend an hour and a half with them, helping them with their English. Well, since the pandemic, I've been doing this on Zoom. And quite frankly, I like it. I don't have to get my goulashes on and trump out to a cold car and go to the library and sit there. I actually really do enjoy doing these sessions by Zoom. One of the benefits I find is that I can see their faces and how they're using the words, mouthing the words close up, which is really a benefit when you're trying to help with enunciation with English. So even post-pandemic, I have already informed the library that I want to continue for the people that find it difficult getting to the library to be able to do that ongoing. Anybody else about how their volunteering has changed since pandemic?
Well, I think one thing I'd like to say is that when you mentioned volunteering and caregiving, kind of along the same lines, when my mother in an assisted living residence, when the pandemic started, well, before that, of course, we'd been going in, but after that, I guess of course it changed. We weren't able to go in anymore and do that. And I think we were scrambling, and so were the staff, really scrambling to find ways to keep the connection going. And I think, Doreen, you and I talked a bit about things like FaceTime to help connect. But when the pandemic first started, the care home my mom was in did not have the facility really to do that, and she did not have the capability either. So it became a struggle. They got better at it, but I think what the pandemic has done, I hope, is get the homes have better facilities like iPads available, people who know how to work FaceTime to help the residents or whatever other program they want to use. But I think that was something they'd never really worked with before. And so I'm hopeful that this will be something that will be part of their regular work day, even now when things have loosened up a bit.
Good. Anybody else?
I think with me, what I'm seeing is, and it comes down to technology again. We have to do our volunteerism and reaching out to people from home. And we are reaching out more. And I think that's giving us an opportunity to reach people we weren't reaching before. I notice a lot of things on the internet now, associations and organizations that are offering their sessions via Zoom. So if I wouldn't have been able to attend one of their meetings now, I can easily attend that from home. And so it's just a matter of keeping it in my calendar and being available to jump on board. And in the same way, we, our own organization can reach out and we can share information now that we weren't with the members who are all over the province that we were never able to reach before. So on a regular basis now, we can reach out to them and offer them programming that we wouldn't have been able to do before. And it's forcing us to learning new technology. So, and keeping your mind, working hard and learning all the time. And I think that's always a special benefit to keeping you thriving through the later years. So yeah, I'm really grateful for it. I want to hang on to a lot of that as we go into being able to meet and see and do things in person again, that we take this with us as an additional tool now.
Okay, excellent. Okay, but one of the things, let's take a step back and just identify here now, why do people, not just seniors, okay, but people, why do people just in general volunteer? Why do we do that? And I've got a slide to help guide us through that one. Okay. So what are some of the reasons that we may choose to go out and volunteer? Well, as I did a bit of my research, I found that there was many reasons that people volunteer in general. Some of them can, because they find it's a brilliant way to find new interests, or broaden career horizons, or even promoting causes. So there's a good reason why people actually could do that. And one of the examples I can give you is a friend of mine who volunteers for Cuernavaca here in Regina. And she's actually gone down to Mexico to the site several times and helped build houses and stuff. So I mean, it's not just even volunteering that we do within our own communities. It can extend. I mean, there's Doctors Without Borders. There's a lot of reasons why people will do this. And I don't know if any of you remember the candy stripers in the hospitals from way back when. Yeah, where people used to do, my sister was a candy striper in the hospital, and that actually led into a career in nursing. So I think a lot of reasons why even some of the younger people do volunteering, and it gives them an opportunity to see what's out there and where's possible things that they could do.
Yeah, that was one of my very first volunteer stints, was volunteering at C.A.R.P Rehabilitation Hospital here in Regina as a candy striper. Absolutely loved it.
Yeah, I know that as in high school, I used to go to an elementary school when I was in grade 11 and 12, and I did drama with the young children. I was very involved in the drama community. when I was in high school, and I used to go and do a drama, and we put on a little play for the parents and stuff. But it was an interest that I had and thought about as one time going into those creative arts. Okay. Another way is that this is probably a premier way for especially immigrants or refugees to our country to improve their language. If they can volunteer with a group, they get an opportunity to utilize English, or we can also use another separate language, a second language that may want to be volunteering with, say, a group of immigrants that and help guide them, and especially if you know their language. So it's an excellent way to develop language skills. What are some of the other things is that, well, to be honest, it just feels good. And most of us just like to feel needed. So there's a whole variety of reasons why we would be out there and we would say, like, we are going to volunteer. So, you know, I think it's important to remember that there is those economic and societal benefits of volunteering. And that's what motivates us to get out there. But again, this whole session was really about, how does it help me? How does it help us at our age? Well, it's really, really quite simple. It's simply that volunteering is actually good for us. It is really, really good for us. And what do I mean by that? Well, when you look at some of the benefits that are out there, there's this old saying, use it or lose it. And when we talk about having a healthy body and a healthy mind, that's what we're talking about. Retirement, I think a lot of people think about, well, when I retire, I'm just going to sit around, I'm going to do nothing, I'm going to drink my Mai Tais, I'm going to wander down and have my nice little lunch whenever I feel like eating it. I'm not going to have any more commitments. And that's fine for short periods of time. But there has been studies here done, one in geriatrics of Sherbrooke in Quebec, for example, that no commitments, no interests, or nothing to stimulate us actually is associated with a decrease in cognitive functioning. So by not participating, we actually are doing ourselves harm. One of the other studies I looked at here was a mentoring study that they did over quite a number of years, in fact, about 14 years, where they paired up school-age children with mentors, with seniors. And they found that they had very similar results, that in one study that followed the people over these 14 years showed that the volunteers not only had better cognitive functioning, but they maintained functions better than non-volunteers. So I thought, well, here's something that I could do, but it's also going to be good for me. And one of the more interesting studies I looked at was, it gives you a reason to actually maintain your health. They found that people that volunteer are more likely to go out and see their doctor and get health screenings, because I have to be someplace, I have to be healthy to be able to do this. People are counting on me. I want to be able to do X, Y, Z. So I need to stay healthy. What do you think about some of those thoughts? Anybody? No?
It's Wendy. I think those are excellent points, Doreen.
Mhm.
One thing that comes to mind as I listen to what you're saying is the benefit of connection to others, to our communities, and just the absolute value of being connected. Zoom has been a real, not only learning experience, but a lifeline. I temper that with words of caution because I dearly want to be out and about. And so I balance that, but it's been a great tool. When it comes to benefits and that whole benefit of volunteering and connection to people, I really see the benefit to my own personal health, because especially these past 2 years, it's been, living by myself, it's, without that connection, I think I might have been in a different place, mental health wise, which of course would have then put stress on my physical health. And just the ability to reach out and laugh, have fun, enjoy oneself, and learn has been immensely helpful to as an individual and getting through this pandemic. And so before and during and after the pandemic, I totally agree with what you're talking about here in terms of just a health benefit.
Carrie, you have you had your hand up. I'm sorry if I missed that. I don't sometimes see it when I've got the presentation screen up.
Yes, I just wanted to add a point, and it was something that we learned from a research project that was done by Reach and a professor in the social work department here at the university. And what they found as a driving force for a number of people volunteering was access to food. And that was people who were volunteering because coffee and cookies were provided, or because lunch was provided, or, some other food throughout the year, whether it was, a once or twice a year thank you luncheon that was done, or the regular coffee and snack every week if they volunteered weekly. And I thought that was quite interesting, because I know that when we do events here at the Lifelong Learning Center, we always used to have food and coffee and tea, as most of you will know. And I don't know what's going to happen going forward, because, shared food is no longer something that we're able to do. Everything needs to be individually packaged, but I'm sure we will go out and buy large boxes of granola bars and have those available, because they are individually wrapped and easy for people to take as a snack.
Excellent. One of the things you mentioned, Carrie, I'm going to capitalize on now. It is basically to trying new things, whether it be an educational aspect, like in lifelong learning, or it could even be my mother. I'll give you an example of my mother, who used to volunteer at her residence library and her tuck shop, which was a little store they had, and she did folding as well. And I can tell you that there would be times that I would call my mother, and she was well into her 90s at that time, and I'd say, just, hey, do you want to have a chat, Mom? And she'd say, I'm sorry, I do not have time. I'm scheduled to be at the tuck shop or at the library, or I have to go and do this. You'll just have to phone at a more convenient time.
Yeah.
And I thought, here I am taking my time to call you, Mom, so that you aren't lonely. And I almost have to schedule an opportunity to talk to you. And then I took a step back and I think, well, this is great. I mean, I hope at 90 some, I have the energy that my mother had. Well, up until she was 94, you know, and I thought that that was really great because it kept her involved. In fact, I think at 93 or 94, she got to sit on the board at the residence too, as well. But trying new things, I think is really, my parents were well into their 80s when we started doing Skype, because at that time I lived overseas and we needed to be able to communicate. So they learned how to do Skype. They learned how to manage a computer. And I think that is part and parcel of this. And
What-
Wendy, sorry?
Well, I was just gonna say, when I think of volunteering, I think of it like a guilty pleasure. It's sort of like a hug. You can't hug somebody else without getting a hug. And so it's mutually beneficial. And perhaps one of the things, you haven't mentioned this yet, is friendship. Like I have made the best of friends through volunteering. And that's an extra benefit that a lot of people don't think about, but it is a huge part of volunteering are the relationships that you build.
Yeah, it's a really good point, is that connection. But one of the things in my readings that I went into that actually made me sit up and really say, well, yeah, that kind of makes sense, is that a lot of men who have been very, very tied up in their businesses and their work, more predominantly men than women, when they retire, have an extremely hard time finding a purpose and a meaning in their lives, and they feel quite lost. Unfortunately, this is actually translated into one of the highest suicidal rates in the older males population. This is scary. So when I talk about having benefits to us, having that opportunity to find ways to feel, like you said, Kathleen, that connection, that purpose in our life is really helping. Volunteering helps to fill that gap up and giving a person a reason to get out of the bed in the morning for volunteering. I can attest to that. This morning, I did not want to get out of bed. Putting that foot over the side. Today was a day I just wanted to kind of cuddle in, but I was volunteering with Coffee with C.A.R.P, so here I am, and I'm up and about. What it helps us people to do is to regain that sense of control. As we age, we have sometimes very little control over what's happening to us physically. But volunteering can actually act as an antidote. We can gain control over some of these things because we are controlling it by volunteering and doing things for others. And the person then realizes, they realize that they're worth something. And interesting enough, most research says that you actually feel like you have more time because you are very involved and the hours just don't slip away. You see benefit for what the hours that you are putting in. And so it actually amplifies that feeling of appreciation. It's kind of twofold. You go out and volunteer, and then you feel good. So because you feel good, you go and volunteer more, and that makes you feel even better. And so it becomes a circle sort of a thing. So I thought these were really interesting. Any thoughts on any of those? No?
Well, I think you're right completely. I mean, I look at the graphs And when you use the example of men, in my case, I was, of course, being moved from place to place during my military service years and get accustomed to at the most inconvenient time being told I'm going to be living somewhere else next week for maybe somewhere between 1 and 12 months type of thing. So you have to fit into the new community. But when you do, you start to learn things that you didn't know before. You didn't know that you didn't know. Suddenly you were encountering a whole bunch of, I wonder who's the mayor here. I wonder what the police force is like. I wonder what the food's like. What are the roads like? You learn all of those things and you keep staying current with what's going on around you, which is what children experience all the time when they're children. Go and play in the street. What street? You know, go out that door and you'll find a street and figure it out yourself, you stupid little kid. But now you're doing it as an adult and you're saying, this is a really interesting place I've come to. I didn't know that. I thought this was the end of the world, but it's not. It's the start of a new world. So all of those things reinforce. And then volunteering means you're current with what's going on around you and being updated as we are here. What are the important elements of life?
Absolutely. When there's words there that saying finding those fulfilling moments. I give you an example. The very first time a newcomer in my group with English as a second language, when they can read an entire paragraph out loud to me without one correction, it is a not only fulfilling experience for them, but boy, is it ever, it feels good to me as well. I'm so proud of them. Okay. And that I think, or even helping with somebody learning how to read and they struggle to read and they finally get their first book done. Or maybe you are a senior that has never had the opportunity to learn to read and has gone in to say, I am going to tackle this. And you finally read that first book on your own. But those fulfilling moments are the moments that we recall when we look back on stuff. We're not going to recall that we watched Desperate Housewives or Housewives of Atlanta. I mean, those are not moments that I'm going to be recalling terribly much, but I am going to recall that first time that newcomer from India was able to read that paragraph to me without one correction. Okay.
I think it comes down to a legacy, and do we want to leave this, this world a better place? And I think that pushes us forward to go out there and to try and make a difference. And look at that, leave a legacy.
Leave a legacy.
I'm excited.
I don't know about any of you, but I have often thought after I retired and stuff, I said, but how am I going to be remembered? Did I make a difference? And I think we all would like to know that we have made a positive difference in our world by improving somebody's life. And volunteering helps us, giving that sense of, yeah, there was a reason. There was a reason that I was here. Okay, so maybe I'm going to just stop sharing for a few minutes before we get into it and talk about these things that benefits that we talked about. Is there any, we said the legacy, which was obviously another point that we had. Is there any other benefits that anybody can see?
Well, the ripple effect of the benefits that you brought, you were associated with, because it flows throughout the whole community and then by extension throughout the whole province, the country, etc. You've come up with your misunderstanding of some aspect. You've now come to learn that as a retired volunteer. And now that increased knowledge and understanding of what that subject's really about spreads, and you made your contribution. Hopefully we made it today. We made enough. We covered tomorrow already. We can slack off for 24 hours.
Whatever. That is the truth. That is true. I got back to, I wanted to now sort of get into really say, what are those real, just a recap of what those really tangible things that we can really hang on to when we talk about these surprising benefits of volunteering. And they're not so surprising in reality, if we stop and think about it. But let's just sort of try to recap some of them, okay? When did they talk about the impact, we talked before about the mental health, which is, there's all good points, depression, lowering depression, actually there's been studies that it lowers the risk of dementia, etc. But one of the things that they did was they actually have said that even if somebody volunteers 100 hours annually, just that works out to about 2 hours a week, it is actually linked to greater longevity and reductions in the symptoms of depressions. There is a direct link between that and having a increase in your quality of life and your self-esteem. I found that very interesting, that the people that were out there volunteering really were showing tangible benefits to this volunteering versus people that don't. And surprisingly, the people that have chronic health conditions actually benefit even the most from volunteering. Unfortunately, when I read some of the research, they say though that men, again, who lose their mobility or some form of functionality, their social and community involvement actually declines. Whereas while women's participation tends to persist despite even obstacles. So I think this is something we need to encourage with the men that we know in our lives, is that feeling that they need to persist and find alternative ways to feel that they're contributing. If they could no longer, say, be at homes for habitat and they can't get up and do construction, well, maybe they can do sourcing where it's not the physical. So replacing what they could do physically with something that they could do, still feeling that connection. Why do you think it's more difficult for men? Do you think it? I'm going to call on you, Charles, because you're a man. Why do you think it's more difficult for men?
Because there's a whole bunch of skill sets that are needed to be alive in this world that men don't have. No, when you're raising boys and sticks and stones and all the rest of that nonsense, you're saying, you're going to be a fighter. You're not going to be a fighter. Why would I fight people? Shut up. And you don't have that skill, that confrontational skill, and you get into a job, especially ones like I was in, where the requirement from that job was very narrow in societal terms. And so you just don't have those skills. And I won't pick a nationality. It was another nationality, but we were at a dinner and somebody comically said something like, the man wouldn't know how to boil water. And I said, oh, come on, let's get serious. And his wife, who was from another nationality, slowly said, he doesn't know how to boil water. Her husband doesn't, that's pretty fundamental, pretty simple. But in that society that they lived in, it wasn't North American, but he didn't know how to even heat water, because it was all done for him because he was the man of the household. So those are and then you extrapolate that and you know why men are so useless when they're taken from places where they actually had some ability to contribute.
So I think it's really important then, could I even go as far to say that we should encourage our men to help us around the house?
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Okay, well, that will go over well. So,
Oh, no, well,
but I agree with you. I think it is the fact that women, because we are typically the predominant caregivers of the society, we have to learn to juggle more sometimes. And that may be just right from the get-go, from the time that we're raising young children to the time that a lot of us are caregivers to our parents, etc. We've had to juggle multiple different balls, and that demand on the male side of our society maybe hasn't been there. Now, that doesn't, that, I mean, you can't label all men that way, but I think that there is a great risk to the fact that their whole lives become so tied up in what they were doing as a living that they have that more difficult time transitioning to doing other things and persevering through difficulties in respects to that, in respects to physical and whatever. Any more comments on that? One of the other real great benefits is it bridges generation gaps. We spent Christmas in Ottawa, and my husband got an opportunity to spend hours with our grandson working on an electronical thing that he had bought. And because we had time now to listen, we had time now to spend. So that really helps in bridging those generation gaps. We, as seniors, have so much experience to offer other people. And now we have the time. And so if we can find those opportunities, that's a great win-win situation. Even like, telling stories, going and reading books to young children. We have that opportunity to do that, whereas, a lot of people with their busy lives, when they're raising children, don't. It is a wonderful way to build, as Kathleen pointed out earlier, to build friendships. Typically, when you're volunteering, you will gill yourself to something that you have a passion for. So, and other people that are also volunteering in that area share that passion. And that helps to build friendships, that helps to build connections because of those shared interests. And what I think Carrie pointed out too, like it's never too old, we're never too old to learn and expand our horizons. And by doing that, we start to have that higher sense of purpose and fulfillment for our lives. I found one sentence here that in my research that I thought was really interesting. It says, aging is a natural part of life, and volunteering can help you recapture that sense of wonder and personal progress you felt when you were younger. Now, Charles, you made that point. I'm going to just stop there, sharing there for a second. Charles, you already made that point, that sense of wonder.
I wonder what I meant.
Yeah. It's kind of like being childlike, and it's not being childlike, but that childlike experience to go out and learning something new or experiencing something new. It just fills you up. It just absolutely fills you up.
Something else that isn't often talked about with regards to the benefits of volunteering is, and this may or may not apply to someone who's in retirement, but if you were looking for a job or a part-time job, that volunteering is a very good way to get yourself out there and and put out feelers and let people know who you are. Sometimes you're not looking for a job at all and people just say, hey, would you be interested in doing something? Because I know you've got, you like this, or you've got a background in that. But it is a way of putting yourself out there and being available, and opportunity does present itself when you're out there as a volunteer. And so if you're looking for something like that, that's another good benefit that you can get from volunteering.
Well, that's right. And it can also provide you with some skills that you can then turn into paid employment if you wanted to. I mean, I talked about Reach earlier, and I know that Reach has done a number of different classes related to food preparation. And I'm sure the gentleman that was referred to earlier who didn't know how to boil water could have gone there. There used to be an organization before that called C.A.R.P, Home Economics for Living program, and they actually did specific courses for men who needed to learn how to cook. And a friend of mine sent her husband because he decided that he was going to become a vegetarian, and she wanted to make sure that he understood what he needed to know about cooking as a vegetarian so that his meals would be healthy. But I just use an example of a skill that somebody picked up that turned into a job. Was a volunteer thing that my son did in Vancouver. He volunteered for an alternative bookstore. And one of the things that he had to do there was to sell books, which meant operating a cash register, which he had never done before. He subsequently has worked in bike stores in Vancouver and got his job because he knew how to operate a cash register, which he didn't learn when he was doing his PhD in communications.
Interesting.
So very practical things that you can learn and, apply, and whether you apply it in another volunteer position that you do, or potentially paid employment if that's what people want to do.
I have
No,
never
sorry?
volunteered, and I was hoping that this forum would give me ideas of how to do that.
Okay. Oh, well, interesting that you say that, Kathy, because the next slide is talking about how do we find where to volunteer. So just a second here. Oops. Finding the right fit for you. So space pays special attention here, Kathy. It is important, I think, right off the get-go, that I would highly recommend that when you're looking for where to find something to volunteer, the very first thing you must keep in mind is don't overcommit. Start slowly, okay? Wherever you're going to volunteer. It's a couple hours a week or even a couple hours a month. It's much harder to step back which can also be very frustrating if you find it's not a good fit for you. And it will give you a sense of insufficiency if you don't. So we want volunteering to be a very positive experience for people, okay? Very first thing, don't overcommit, start slowly, okay? Also, if you had to drive an hour to go and volunteer for an hour and then drive back for an hour, it's going to lose its appeal very, very quickly. So be careful when you're looking at volunteering. Start off either that you can do it by electronics, or if it's physical, make sure it's convenient, because it shouldn't be a hassle to get there. Okay? So looking at what's available, what do people need in the local place, or what can I do online? One of the things that we don't spend enough time with is finding that right place. So just because you're available doesn't actually mean that you might be needed at a place that you want to volunteer. Some volunteer places actually have lists of people that want to volunteer. They can't use them all. Other places have a great need for volunteers and can't get the right people. So you have to be patient, but wherever you're volunteering, a lot of them, what they want to know is, are you serious? Because if you're going to say volunteer in a hospital and they're going to be asked, relying on you to be there to say hold babies or read to people that are in the hospital, they need to know that they can count on you to be there. So be serious about where you want to and make sure that it fits for you. But also, you don't want to be volunteering and be doing something you don't want to do. If you want to volunteer to make connections with people and the job you are given is stuffing envelopes where all you do is put something in an envelope for 4 hours and then leave again and really never talk to anybody, that's not going to work for you. So treat it like you would treat a job. You want to interview them and they're going to want to get to know exactly what are you looking for in your volunteering. So be kind of like, why am I want to volunteer? I want to connect with people, or I just want to go and help somebody out. I don't care if I meet anybody new. Just kind of understand why you want to put yourself out there. Also, most importantly, is look in areas that interest you. If you if it's an area that you've really never had an interest in, I wouldn't start there. I would start with something that you really might find interesting, and building on the things maybe that you did in your work life, okay? Or something that you enjoyed doing while you were raising your children. There is many not-for-profit organizations that have lists of volunteers. So you look at areas of interest, but also there's websites. Ask your friends. But be prepared to invest some time and effort in this search process, because you want the right thing that's going to be a win-win for not only them, but for you, okay? I don't know, Carrie, probably you can have a little bit more, like you deal with volunteers a lot, do you not, in lifelong learning?
Yes.
Do you have any other suggestions that could be up here good for people to finding that right fit and how important that right fit is?
Oh, that is really crucial. I remember one time we were doing a focus group and it was actually about older adult volunteering. And one of the participants in the group said that she started volunteering for an organization immediately when she retired from work, because a friend of hers was volunteering there and told her it was a great place to go. Well, it turned out that she absolutely did not like what she was doing, but it was a position where she was providing direct service to a youth program and felt guilty such that she couldn't leave the organization. So one of the recommendations that people made coming out of that was to maybe try out something before you actually sign on the dotted line to be there for 15 hours a week. So if you're not going to like it, you'll know that quickly and you can decide to move on to something else. Somebody also suggested that one thing that would be helpful, and we've never done it, and I don't know anyone who does, and that is to do the kind of interest tests that they do, usually about I remember doing it when I was in grade 8 in public school, because it determined which high school we went to. And it was kind of not really an aptitude test, but it was more interest. What would you like to do, as you grow up, as you start to work and looking at the kind of profession. And people were saying that even with people who are retired and looking for volunteer opportunities, that's probably a good thing to do, because then you can kind of assess, well, I really like to be around people. And so what are some of the things that you can do that will put you in contact with others? Or I really don't like to be around people. I like to do things by myself, in which case you might be the person who stuffs envelopes or does some research or does another task that's equally important, but doesn't involve engaging with a whole lot of other people. So you really do need to figure out what your interests are to know what you should be
Yeah.
considering
Kathy, does that help?
as a volunteer opportunity.
Kathy, does that help? Kathy? I'm not sure if we still have.
Actually, I don't know. I worked at the lab and did dishes, and I'm a people person, and I worked alone a lot, all the time. And so I thought about going and volunteering there just whenever I feel like it, and ask the supervisor if I could come in, just so I have some people contact, because I'm a people person, and I don't have to be talking. I just need to see people and be around people. But it does help that I don't get into things I shouldn't, and like testing it out before you sign on the dotted line is a good idea.
Okay, great.
I have a husband who doesn't want to volunteer and doesn't want a job. He doesn't even want to curl because it's confining, and we'd like to travel and stuff, but I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing.
Well, you know, as always, I mean, you can always give us a shout at sk@carp.ca, and we could maybe try to help as well in respects to that. So, you know, I do have some last words because we're running out of time here. I just want people to realize that there is an author here that had a favorite quote that I have. It says, "Those who can do, those who can do more, volunteer." And I thought that was a really important statement about volunteerism, that people that have the ability to go out there and find the time within themselves to volunteer. But one thing I can tell you is whatever time you spend volunteering, especially if it's in a win-win situation, you will get much more back than you put out. I really hate when people suggest that the aging population is going to cost society, because they forget that people, as they age, many of them contribute volunteering and they're working for free. So in fact, they believe that in view of the benefits that adults have in our society, we should find ways to offer more organized recognition and even support for volunteering. For example, providing reimbursements for expenses for those who cannot afford to do certain things but would like to, but if they had a little extra, you know, maybe some of their cost of gas or bus or that type of thing was paid for, then they would be able to give up their time. Seniors do make a remarkable contribution to Canada. We're not only active community members, we contribute to living a life of purpose, but we also feel a sense of responsibility to create a better world for our future generations. So that is the presentation, and I just want to let you know that you know, if you ever have any questions about any of these discussions, feel free to contact us at sk@carp.ca. We're always looking for volunteers as well, and we can always find a fit someplace, trust me. If you have other ideas for Coffee with C.A.R.P, also send them to sk@carp.ca. Attention, Coffee with C.A.R.P. I want to take a few minutes here and turn it over to Colette here. Next month, we are having a wonderful show, and I'll let Colette explain it to you.
Well, first of all, I want to say, Doreen, thank you so much for your presentation today, for sharing your thoughts and your research with all of us. And thank you to the participants for making this a real coffee chat. Thank you. Next month, our next Coffee with C.A.R.P, March the 8th at 10 a.m. We're thrilled and we're very fortunate to have with us Dr. Ken Stacku. He'll be our guest speaker. He's the former medical director of palliative care services at St. Paul's Hospital in Saskatoon. He'll be discussing general information on palliative care, the history, the services, including funding, settings, and barriers to receiving palliative care. Dr. Stacku will also touch on the purpose and the importance of an advanced healthcare directive. Please, I challenge all of you to tell your friends about this session and to remember that you do not need to be a member of C.A.R.P to participate in this session. So I think I hope that we'll have a lot of people interested in this very timely topic, whether it's for ourselves, our friends, our neighbors, our family members. And I hope that you will be with us next month, March the 8th at 10 a.m.
Okay, I am really excited about this one. I think it's a very topical topic and I think it'll be extremely good. I will leave you all with a quote from Audrey Hepburn. As you grow older, you will discover that you have two hands, one for helping yourself, but the other for helping others. So till we meet again with Coffee with the C.A.R.P, please keep smiling and stay safe. And we'll look forward to seeing everybody back next month. Goodbye, everybody.
Thanks, Doreen.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye now.